All right, we are live.
And it says to me to either leave the webinar or continue. So I'm going to continue, okay, because it's being recorded. So it gives you the option, if you don't want to be recorded, you can get out of there, right?
That's correct.
Perfect. Okay. Well, it sounds like we've already had my introductory remarks, but I'll do it just officially for the records. I want to say good afternoon to everyone, and I hope this is a wonderful Friday for you. You know, the start of a long weekend, and I know you have lots of great plans. So I want to say that, of course, you know that I'm the chair of the Race Equity and Inclusion Working Group, also the chair of SACOG for this year. And I'm a council member in the city of Sacramento. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking this Friday out of your day to join us. And before we jump into the meeting and the introductions, and I want you to start thinking about your introduction, because I want each of you to introduce yourself, the jurisdiction that you're from, and then I want you to tell us your proudest moment, as Jill has already done for herself, but she can repeat it again if you want to. What is your proudest moment that you can think of right now that comes to mind that brings a smile on your face? So that's a part of your introduction. And so, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll and share any updates and directions that you have for us?
Absolutely, Chair Jennings. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. This meeting is being recorded and streamed over the internet. For members of the public viewing this meeting online, we accept and encourage public comment and have provided options that are listed at the top of this meeting agenda. For committee members participating online, thank you for joining us today. Please mute your devices when you are not speaking and use the raise hand feature in Zoom should you wish to comment. Would you like to go to roll call, Chair Jennings?
Please.
All right, I'll go ahead and take roll. I'm going to start with the SACOG board members. Director Clark Kratz.
Here.
Gallardo.
Yes.
Gog.
Yes.
Guerrero. Absent. Middleton.
Here.
Zaragoza.
Sorry, here.
Chenier.
Here.
Soon. Absent. Vice Chair Ferriss.
I'm here.
Chair Jennings.
Here.
Perfect. And now for our external members, Avitol Barnia. Absent. Carolyn Coleman.
I'm here.
Elisa Herrera.
I'm here.
Chet Hewitt. Absent. Heather Hostler. Absent. Eileen Jacobs. Absent. Holly Nichol.
Here.
Debbie Otto Kent.
Here.
Christine Tien.
Here.
And Joshua Wood. Absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, very quickly, introductions, jurisdiction, or organization that you represent, and proudest moment. And I'm going to let you start rolling, whoever's ready. We'll do a little popcorn.
All right.
go.
Michael Zaragoza, I'm council member, vice mayor this year for the city of Placerville. And proudest moment, this just popped into my head because it was recent, which was when we had the Caldor fire in El Dorado County. I was just so proud of the residents in El Dorado County. Before anything collectively kind of came together from a standpoint of like Red Cross or anything like that, everybody in the community just started. You can stay at my house. You can come here. You can park your RV here. Where can I deliver food? Where can I take clothes? And it was the most amazing thing I had ever seen. And all these people that maybe they were fighting the day before over politics or whatever, that everyone came together and decided, and wanted to help in very meaningful ways. And I couldn't have been more proud of our residents in the county and for people outside that asked, how can we help? And so to me, that was just an incredibly proud moment in my life.
Fantastic. Okay, you got to remember when you finish saying your proudest moment, you got to say, I'm in, because I'm into this meeting, and all of us are going to say welcome. Okay. So
I'm
Michael,
in like Flint.
Welcome. Glad to have you. Next, who's next?
I'll go next. My name is Lakvir Gag. I'm with the city of Live Oak. Council member for 10 years, two-time mayor. had a lot of proud moments in my life. I think the most important proud moment in my life, I believe, was when I met my wife 42 years ago. And it was just a kind of moment that things happened because you didn't want them to happen, but they happened. They're really hard to explain the situation, but she really didn't want to get married, and she didn't put no makeup on or nothing. And I was in the mood that I didn't want to see any lady with the makeup on. And I said, I love you. And she go, but I don't want to get married. And I talked to her father and her brother. They were present there, and Dave, and we all sat down and had a meeting, and says, okay, when do you want to get married? I said, I need to get married in 2 weeks. And this is okay. We set a date, and I believe that was the most proudest moment in my lifetime.
42 years later.
And I'm in.
Welcome. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep it going.
I'll
This is
go.
good.
I'm Debbie Odo-Kent, and I'm in Sacramento. I'm with the Health Education Council. And I had a very prideful moment or time this month. My mom turned 99 years old on Wednesday. And I'm amazed that she is very joyful and joyous, and she spreads that around to other people. One of the things that really surprised me is the number of young people, many of them my siblings' friends, who wanted to come and be with her and celebrate with her. And it's really good to, be around somebody who's almost 100, who continues to be extraordinarily optimistic.
You in?
And I'm in.
Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome. Keep it
I'll
going.
go.
Keep it going. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Jan Clark Kratz. I'm council member of the great town of Loomis, former mayor. And I know I have lots of proud moments, but actually I have one from last night, believe it or not. Last night, our town wrapped up the month-long remembrance for the Japanese internment, which is the 80th year this year. And we had the Blue Goose, which is one of our fruit sheds, was full of people, and we had a panel discussion. 2 of the people on the panel were actually interned. One was 95 years old and one was 90. And we had, it was just a moment in time where all of these precious memories were talked about, and all of these just amazing stories about, the horrible thing they went through last night. But I'm proud of our community and how we came together, and the steering committee and the people that participated, and everything has been videoed. So seriously was one of the most proudest moments of my life last night. So that happened last night. And I'm in. Woohoo!
Welcome. Good deal. All right, keep going.
I'll go next. Hi, I'm Holly Nichol. I'm from the Public Health Institute, State of Equity team. And one of my proudest moments was when I and my ex-partner adopted a child out of foster care, and she became our family about 5 years ago, and she's 10 now, going on 11. And so that was one of the proudest moments of my life, and she continues to be like just a light and has a song in her heart every day. And I'm just so proud of her. And I'm in.
Welcome. Outstanding. Keep it going.
I'm in.
Keep it going. I love the energy.
I'm in. I'm Elisa Herrera with the Latino Leadership Council, and kudos to Holly. I shared the same experience. Husband and I adopted 3 kids, sibling set, and my proudest moment was when the youngest graduated high school, and it was great pride and great relief. So it does happen. Takes a lot of work, but it can happen. So congratulations. I'm in.
Welcome. All right. I like this. Keep going.
Y'all are going to have me in tears today. This is Carolyn Coleman. I'm with the League of California Cities, and the proudest moment that comes to mind for me today is when I left a career after 11 years because I'd always wanted to go to law school. So I went to law school as an older adult and graduating with honors. And I think one of the reasons why that's so special to me is because it put me on the path of public service that I'm on today. So I am in.
Welcome. Beautiful story. I like that. Keep going. Keep going.
I can go next.
Okay.
I'm Christine Tien. I'm with the California Endowment and I live in Davis, California. And my proudest moment right now, top of mind, is my youngest is graduating from high school. I can't believe it. So yeah, so right now that's like the big thing for me. And I am totally in.
Welcome. Welcome. All right, who's next?
I'll go next. I'm Lucas Ferriss, the Vice Mayor of the City of Davis. And I think something that I'm particularly proud of that happened actually just 2 weeks ago. I graduated from Syracuse University, the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs, with my master's in public administration degree. And that's been a long held dream. So.
Way to go, my brother. Good job.
I'm all in.
Congratulations. Welcome. Okay, keep it
All
going.
right. I'll jump in here now. As I shared this morning, Jill Gallardo, City Council member with the great city of Rockland. And I am just having a moment this morning. I am ridiculously proud. I just finished watching my nephew, Frank Gallardo Bell, graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy this morning and got to watch President Biden give an incredibly touching speech about John McCain, who is interred there. He loved the academy so much that he chose it to be his final resting place. And he just gave an incredible speech. And then I got to watch my nephew walk up and shake his hand and get his diploma. And I am on cloud nine to be topped off tomorrow when my granddaughter graduates from high school, from Delaware High School in Loomis. And my husband, her former principal, gets to give her the diploma. So I'm pretty done.
Are you in?
I'm so in today, it's crazy.
Well, I want you to know you're the reason that we're doing this proud moment because of our pre-conversation before the start of the meeting. So welcome, we're glad to have you.
Hey, and apparently we are celebrating foster families and adoption because I am the proud sister of my parents were always foster parents and one of my brothers is adopted and he is a gem.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Who's ready?
Martha Guerrero, Mayor of West Sacramento. And just real excited about my grandson who received his first Holy Communion last Sunday. And it was a great opportunity for all the family to get together and celebrate that. So he completed all of his classes and was so proud of himself. And another thing I'm really proud of is the receipt of federal funding to complete our flood protection work this last week. So really happy about that on behalf of our city. So, and I'm in.
Welcome. So important to get that flood protection money. Good job. Welcome. Who's next?
I'll go, Rick. This is Jay Shanera, City Council, Sacramento. I'm going to go with the family theme here. Because of Zoom and we've had the opportunity to spend some time with our children who are 30 and 28. Had the opportunity to listen to them talk to clients of theirs and people that they work with on the phone. And I'm not sure where they got all this knowledge, but extremely excited about listening to them and their thinking process and their ability to communicate at the level that they're doing. It's just exciting and I'm definitely in.
Welcome. And I know your kids well, so I know where they got their good looks, their knowledge and all that great, incredible strategic thinking from. I know. I won't say it out loud, but I know. And I think you do too. Go look in the mirror.
No, I was gonna say all from my wife. We know that.
Who else? Who are we missing? Come on, staff. I want to hear from staff too on this. Come on.
I'll be happy to go. Go ahead. Chair Jennings, Robert Tadovich, SACOG staff clerk for today. I am proud to lead SACOG's mental health initiative and safety committee. We are here to break barriers and stigma and be able to talk about mental health at work. And I am in.
Welcome. Glad to have you. I'll start calling you Monsieur Clerk, not Madam Clerk.
Either way, it does not bother me.
I'll get it right though. Who's next?
Well, I'll go Chair James Corliss with SACOG, as many of my staff hear me talk about all the time. My oldest daughter is a junior in high school, and she's written an album, and she's on Spotify, and she went to an open mic over winter the first time, and I was so nervous to hear her at this open mic, and she just gets up there and just completely belts it out and like captures the crowd. And I'm more nervous than she is apparently when she gets up, but she's now touring the circuit. She's got music on Apple Music, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Her name's Viva, V-I-V-A. Go check out her songs up there. Proud father.
Congratulations. You in?
I am so in.
Welcome. Glad to have you. Casey, Eric, come on, let's go.
I'm Casey Lazon. I am your staff for this committee at SACOG, and I'm having a hard time getting past. I'm really proud of this this working group. I'm sorry. I'm like basking in your glow. So that's what I'm proud of right now.
And I'm in.
And of course I'm in.
Welcome.
Right. So Eric Johnson, also with SACOG. I'm just so proud of our staff. I mean, I know the board members get to see a little bit of how amazing they are, and you heard from Robert, but you know, everything from dropping and pivoting in a pandemic and continuing to serve the region for the last 2 years to those, you know, somewhat small things of like the power going out last week and just putting on a board meeting remotely with like 90 minutes notice. They are amazing people to work with, and I'm so happy for our future with the people that are here to help contribute to it. And I am all in.
Welcome, welcome. Is AJ out there?
I'm here.
All right, let's go.
Hi, I'm AJ. I'm staff here at SACOG. I lead our communications team. I think one of my proudest moments was in a former life, I started a business in West Sacramento. And the day that we got to open the doors and have our grand opening, it was a brewery. So we actually invited people in. It was retail. And to see the engagement in the community and what turned into like kind of a community gathering space was just like, it filled my heart. It didn't really ever fill my pocketbook, but it was such a dream to do that and provide a space and sort of engage at a citizen level in like a very kind of different way than what I do here. So that was one of my prouder moments. And I'm in.
Welcome, welcome. Okay, I got Shanice and I got Patrick. I'm waiting on you guys.
Everyone. This is really inspiring. It's really inspiring. So I'm glad to be here to hear this right now. But my name is Shanice Alexander. Dive more into that later with Venture with Purpose. One of my most proudest moments is my first job out of grad school. I was the director of a workforce development program on the south side of Chicago. And so we work with folks who are previously incarcerated to teach them how to grow food and then connect farming to obtaining and retaining sustainable employment. And so I worked with a woman who had been incarcerated for 19 years, had a long history of domestic violence, who went through our program and did really well. And over the last few years, I've just followed her, and now she is the director of a program here in Chicago that focuses on women who have been incarcerated. So it's like, just to see her trajectory from where she came from, it's just like, that's exactly why I went to grad school for social work. That's exactly why I did that. So it makes me really proud, and I'm in.
Welcome, glad to have you.
Hey everybody, I'm Patrick Brown out of Oakland. I love this question. And I was realizing the other day, my husband and I had a foster son during a difficult time, and he's returned home, but we still see him a lot. And I was just realizing that the plants that are in our garden, we grew from seed. Like, that kid knows how to grow food because we put the work in early. And that's something I'm super proud of. Thanks for having us today.
You in?
I'm in.
Welcome. Did I miss anybody before I give you mine and we go on to the agenda?
I think we have a couple of other SACOG staff here.
Okay.
If they're willing, Renee and Katie.
Uh-oh.
I don't
know where
if Katie
Renee
has a
is.
mic.
No, I'm just joking. I found her. Hi, my name is Renee Garcia and I work for SACOG. You guys see me a lot running tech. I would say my proud moment is, working for an agency that makes change happen. We don't just want it, we make it happen. And I feel part of it. So it makes me very proud and I'm definitely in.
Welcome. Glad to have you.
Okay, I think I have a mic. There we go. Katie Brunetti, SACOG staff. I will say my proudest moment, I think, is coming up next week when my oldest daughter graduates kindergarten. So we actually get to have a graduation ceremony for her, which is great. And we're super excited to see that happen. And I am in.
Welcome. Welcome. So you think we got everybody, James? Good. So I'm real glad that Jill kind of brought us to this point, and I'm glad we took the time to do this. These are things that I think are important to every meeting, that we just don't come to the meeting to get business done, but we come to the meeting to also get to know each other, learn how to work with each other, and understand some of the things that have helped us to be the people who we are and the parents that we are and the incredible community servants that we are. So I encourage all of us to take time during our meetings with our staff and people who we work with in order to get to know them a little bit better and take the time to understand what are they proud of, what have they accomplished, whose life have they impacted and what difference are they planning to make. Just some of those wonderful things that maybe people wouldn't tell you unless you ask the question. So I'm gonna tell you that in 1978, I got married to a woman that I met in 1975. And as soon as I saw her, I knew that I wanted to be involved in her life. And I was just praying that she wanted the same for herself. And we met and eyes locked, and we've been locked ever since with each other, with 2 kids and 6 grandkids. And we're starting to see ourselves duplicated through those grandkids because they're starting to talk like us and act like us. But it's just incredible to see something that you thought was just a dream in 1978, 1975, turn into 45 and 47 years of just marital bliss, where we've just enjoyed every moment that we've had together. And it's really my proudest moment that our paths cross and that we've turned it into this great relationship that we both love with all our heart and soul. So today is my anniversary. I'm happy to be here today and share it with you. And with that, I'm in. Okay, good. Okay, so a reminder for all of us on this working group, and for those of us who are joining the meeting from the public for the first time, this working group is working towards 2 outcomes this year. First is to prioritize racial equity in the blueprint, which is SACOG's long-range transportation and land use plan. The second is to build support among key stakeholders and board members and provide direction for a racial equity action plan. We'll get more into all of that as the day goes on. But I want to take our next item, which is an action item, which is to approve this as a remote meeting. So Robert, would you please present this item, please?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, committee members. This item should be familiar to you all as you voted on it the last committee. It is an action item for us to allow this committee meeting to be held as a hybrid meeting.
Race equity and inclusion. I'll call you after this.
There is a resolution attached to the action item. I will need a motion and a second to approve.
Move to approve.
Second by Ferriss.
Go ahead and take the roll call vote here. I'll start with the SACOG board members. Director Clark Kratz.
Yes.
Gallardo.
Yes.
Gog.
Yes.
Guerrero.
Aye.
Middleton. Director Middleton, not seeing her, absent. Zaragoza.
Aye.
Chenier.
Aye. Aye.
Soon. Absent. Vice Chair Ferriss.
I am here. And yeah. And yes.
Thank you.
And I
appreciate that. Chair Jennings. Chair Jennings, if you could indicate your vote. One moment.
Yes.
There we go. Perfect. And now for the external members, Avital Barnia. Absent. Carolyn Coleman.
Aye.
Elisa Herrera.
Yes.
Chet Hewitt, absent. Heather Hostler, absent. Eileen Jacobs, absent. Holly Nichol,
Aye.
Debbie Oto Kent,
Yes.
Christine Tien,
Yes.
and Joshua Wood, absent. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll now move into our next item where we have our fearless and incredible Executive Director, James Corliss, who will lead us through where we've been, where we're going as a race equity inclusion working group. And I just want to kind of remind all of us, in case time just kind of passed you by, we haven't met since February, but we've still continued to do the work. And so I just want to have James make sure that all of us know where we've been and where we're going as a working group. James?
Okay, thank you, Chair Jennings. Yeah, because it has been a while for a working group that has been meeting pretty frequently. So just a few reminders and some highlights where we've been. As you know, in February, the SACOG board adopted the Race Equity Inclusion Statement of Commitment and Change and did so unanimously. And we debriefed on that at your working group in February. At your working group in February, if you remember, we heard some presentations on community engagement and specifically our Engage, Empower, Implement program, which the board of directors has set aside $3 million for. And we're going to be developing a framework this year for that program to engage lower income communities and communities of color across the 4 counties. We hope it'll be a 6-county framework. So you heard that at your last meeting. The board heard about it in March, and it will be coming back, this Engage, Empower, Implement program. We kicked off a lot of our listen and learn commitment through the racial equity statement. And we're going to be digging in really a lot today, and you all will hear from Shanice and Patrick about some of the one-on-ones, but that listen and learn has commenced, and I think there's some really interesting findings already. We had a board retreat. The SACOG board went into retreat full day for the first time in a long time. I want to say 3 years because of the pandemic. And we spent a lot of that retreat all morning talking about the importance of the triple bottom line as our framework for our upcoming long range plan and really for our agency's work. And that triple bottom line is equity, environment, economy. Trying to elevate all of those as our trio of North Stars, if you will. And that was an excellent retreat. Board was very engaged, great outside speakers. You've heard a little bit, perhaps, certainly the board has, about, we have a program we're very proud of called the Green Means Go program, which is about sparking infill development and housing and affordable housing in existing communities. We had some really good back and forth with some community-based organizations, and we're trying to meet the board's request that we try to infuse equity and engagement and participation into that program. And then finally, the board just approved what we are calling our Community Voices Committee. So it would be a standing committee of community members and nonprofit CBOs from around the 6 counties, yet to be named and seated, but as a standing committee that would actually be informing and providing really a great sounding board, and not just a one-off, but in terms of developing an ongoing relationship with a lot of those community members and community voices. So that is not all by way of saying we're firing on all cylinders or we figured it all out. That's just really saying we are, as you know, I hope you know, trying to take seriously our emerging commitment to racial equity and engagement, and just giving you a little bit of a sense of what's been happening and how we are trying to think about different efforts, initiatives, work programs, and projects, at least since we last met. So as Chair Jennings said, and just as a reminder, a lot of that is supposed to be pulled through. The discussion today is supposed to be pulled through, and really all of which is to inform this racial equity action plan, right? So And that is a product we want to develop with your help and guidance this calendar year. And so by the end of this year, we want to have a racial equity action plan. It is our map for how we move forward and how we answer a lot of your thoughts and ideas and questions. And so, okay, great, we got a racial equity statement, now what, right? So the racial equity action plan is the answer to that. If Renee, could you send or could you put up the graphic that we have? I just want to show a visual real quick for people. If that is possible, I'm going to work here. Great, okay. So this is very conceptual, right? This is just trying to give you all a visual for how does this all fit together. I will say, and it was great to hear all of you kind of weigh in on proud moments and hear all of the staff here talk about our work. But we can be, I think you all know this, the board member, we can be a very complicated agency. We can be an agency that has a lot of stuff going on all at once, right? And sometimes it's a little hard to kind of wrap your arms around everything. But the point of this graphic here, and if you see the calendar, so the year timelines in the bottom, 22, 2023, 24, 25, 26. The very top there, you see Race Equity Action Plan. And the idea is that if we can develop that this year, it really will be our roadmap to then influence, a lot of the other, if not all the other projects that we undertake. For example, right below that in the dark blue is the blueprint development. That's our long range plan. We sometimes call that by the long acronym MTPSES, which is our Metropolitan Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy. But that has again, probably one of the most important things we do is the development of that long range plan. And we are looking for our Race Equity Action Plan to influence that. And then all the way through to implementation once the board adopts that plan in 2024. I mentioned EEI, Engage, Empower, Implement. I mentioned the Green Means Go program. We have a funding round of transportation grants that we award to our cities and transit agencies and our partners. The board just adopted and launched last Friday, I think is really exciting, a vision to connect our entire region with a network of trails, right? So big questions there, opportunities, but challenges and questions around how we make sure something like that trails plan really has equity and racial equity benefits. And then our regional transit, we do a lot of work around transit and strategic planning on transit and a vision for the sort of future of public transit and providing people options to the auto and driving alone, that regional transit network. Again, those are just examples. This is not a comprehensive list of how the Race Equity Action Plan is really supposed to come in at the very top and really infuse, right, our work. So you can take that down, Renee. Okay, so any questions on that? I just want to say one more thing about today and the meeting ahead and the work ahead. Is any more questions on anything I just shared there? Not seeing any. Yeah, okay, well, I know the big agenda item really is around, and I'm so glad that we have Shanice and Patrick here, but it's really around the beginning of these learnings and the one-on-ones and what you all can both pull out of those and then also reflect back to us in terms of priority. So we're listening to you today to begin to sort of shape a little bit of what you see in some of the learnings, where perhaps there are some either opportunities or some tensions or conflicts in those learnings. And all of this is really intended to help us figure out, and I'm sure Chair Jennings will say this, there's probably a lot of things that we can do to try to operationalize racial equity, right? And I think what we're trying to get all of you to help us with is what are the best things we can do? What are the things that have the most impact? Where should we start to focus? Because we could have this tendency, if we're not careful, right, which is to try to do too much and not do it well. And so that I just want to lay that out in some ways as a challenge for you. So today is not a final kind of here's your list and SACOG, it's 1, 2, 3. It's really to begin having you help us see where you think the priorities could lie, where you think the impact, the benefit could be in some of these initial learnings that are coming forward. So, and then if we can do this, we'd also like to just end today with a little bit of a preview of our engagement strategy around our long range plan, our blueprint. And I'm mindful of time. I'm mindful of people saying, I know that some of you have to drop off. So we'll see if we can do that. But we really would like, one of the most consequential plans we do. We're really trying to rethink our engagement around that plan with an equity lens on it. But would love to get your take, and that's the last agenda item. So back to you, Chair Jennings.
Thank you, James. Give James a couple of little pops or all those things. Great job of telling us where we've been and where we're going. I want to thank you, James. And I just want to stop for a second and reflect on the major progress that we've had over the last year and a half. You know, in high school and college, I was a sprinter. And there were guys that ran the marathon, but I was a sprinter. My race was generally over in 10 seconds or less. And so sometimes in that 10 seconds, you try to get a whole lot of things done, and that's when you end up losing the race. To James's point, which is we want to pick a few things, we want to do them exceptionally well, and we want to win at everything that we do. But we've had over this journey of the last year and a half, you know, we've got to learn about each other, learn about the history of government's role in today's transportation, housing, and economic inequities. And then also learning about what we can do as leaders to counter some of those inequities. And I know that's why many of us serve, is that we know the inequities that exist, and we're doing everything we can to bring those to the forefront and to reverse those inequities so that everyone has the same opportunities in this great race called life. I know that that's what we can do and what we will do as leaders in our respective fields. So today is about rolling up our sleeves and getting ready to dig into all this information that's in front of us. The next item that we're going to discuss is learning from our listening sessions and what we've learned so far, and use that to give us some direction to staff for developing SACOG's racial equity plan. James, I think I heard you say we want to have that done by the end of this year. Is that correct?
Even really write a draft by the fall. I'm looking at Casey and others here, but you know, and you see on the end of your agenda, I think, are the meetings. You have a September meeting, you have a November meeting, right? And as you know, a lot of things the SACOG board tend to change in an even year with elections beginning in November. So I would say fall would be the
right.
September's our goal.
That's good.
Yeah.
So since James did mention the next meeting dates, I just want you to all make sure you have on your calendar July 29th is our next meeting date, and then September 30th, and then November the 18th. And so therefore, we can really kind of understand the time that we have together in order to develop that racial equity racial equity plan while we roll up our sleeves. So we're going to now have Casey Lazan from SACOG, who's going to present the next item. Casey, I know you're going to do a great job. I've been waiting for you all day long. I love your energy. I love the way you present. I love the way the clarity of your presentation. So go ahead. Now that I've pumped you up, go ahead and do what you do, Casey.
Thank you, Chair Jennings. I'm actually going to be sharing this item with Shanice and Patrick. So I'm so happy and excited to introduce you to them. We partnered with Venture with Purpose to help us with both our listening sessions with our stakeholders and to build up our capacity as SACOG to do the Racial Equity Action Plan, both to create the plan as well as to implement it over time. So we're very excited they're here. So just to give you a quick run, because we're tag teaming this. So I'm going to turn it over to Shanice and Patrick to talk about the stakeholder listening sessions that they've had so far. This is really only a partial presentation to you. The rest of it's going to happen between now and later June. And then we will have a discussion on that. They'll hand it back to me so that we can also talk about the learnings from the one-on-ones that we have held with a number of you in the months since you last met. So we're going to do that. We'll have a lot of data to talk about, and we are really looking forward to your discussion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shanice.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to turn it over to Patrick. Who's going to kick us off. So we're really collaborative over here.
Right, it's great to see everybody. Is the deck available? We're super excited to connect. We think it's appropriate to both share a little bit about ourselves and the work of Venture as we're going to review kind of the first findings. We've had very successful listening sessions already. We've got some great deal of planning with Casey and the team. Is it possible to show the deck?
Renee, can you share that?
Yes, I was just going to let you know I'm going to do that right now.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, just a quick, agenda. We're just going to talk for a minute about ourselves and who Venture with Purpose is. Then we'll talk a little bit about the scope of work and timeline, and then we'll give updates from the shareholder listening sessions. We want to make sure there's space for question and answers, and then we'll turn it back over to Casey. So, right, next slide. I'm Patrick Brown. My background, I was born and raised in Chicago. I'm living in Oakland currently, but my background was in workforce development. I worked with a government agency to deliver a program called Green Corps Chicago. So I was really excited to connect again with, what happens when communal municipalities and government agencies come together. It makes a lot of sense. It's in my background. Also, I became really concerned and interested in transformation. I was like, I burned out of a job in Chicago that was, around community engagement. And I really wanted to understand, like, what are the components that we're not really supporting the development and the best viable options for keeping programs running. So when I came to California 12 years ago, I started doing work on organizational development. And so working with organizations and helping them advance equity agendas, helping them try to have impact, a lot of kind of what James was pointing to is like, the way that you get towards impact and outcomes actually has a lot to do with your planning. And so I was really happy to start Venture about 2 years ago. Next slide. Oh, sorry. I should pause and let Shanice introduce herself. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Patrick. As I mentioned, my name is Shanice. I am one of the co-founders and lead consultants here at Venture with my colleague, Patrick. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan. I am currently living in Chicago. I actually started my career, as I mentioned, in workforce development as well, but also at the intersection of food justice, which I didn't realize at the time, but spent a few years running a workforce development program on the south side of Chicago, and then just randomly up and moved to Oakland. Had no connection there, didn't know anybody, but just decided that if I was going to move across the country, I might as well do it at this time. And so I moved to Oakland and I lived there for about 4.5 years, where the majority of that time I was running a food policy organization. And so starting my career, I realized that direct service wasn't for me. I always have been a systems level thinker and really interested in macro level social work systems. And so getting into food policy opened my eyes to the kind of, all the stuff that's going on up here, and then the disconnect between the policy and community. And so my focus was centering community voices and increasing equity throughout the food justice movement while out in Oakland. And then also getting folks to recognize all of the intersections of the systems that we exist in, right? So food, transportation, housing, education, healthcare, and really starting to have the conversations about what it means to break down the silos within these systems. And so I'll pause there, but I'm so happy that, we're doing this work with you all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shanice. You can see how Shanice and I came together in Oakland. Next slide, please. We formed Venture as a response to the needs of organizations that were really struggling. Most of it was framed around equity and inclusion work and diversity, but a lot of it was in response to the logistical happenings on staffs. We were looking at organizations struggling really to bring their best work because they were so caught up in the challenges of administration or how to move an equity agenda forward. And a lot of what we found was people really investing in the planning and the theology, but they weren't really getting to the impact they were looking for. And so Venture was formed under these challenging conditions to help organizations really address impact. And so you'll notice in our work, we come up with short and long-term solutions, but we lead with authenticity. We were chatting about the beginning this morning, Rick, the way you opened the space was so beautiful. It's true. If we don't understand each other, if we aren't connected, if we don't know our stories, the hard, difficult work of equity and implementation really does suffer. And so the last thing I'll say is that, we're really excited to work with SACOG because Venture is really focused on collaborating to help unleash the power of the most powerful piece of your work, which is around the people. And so, I'll turn it over to Shanice to talk a little bit about what we're hearing in the listening sessions. And we're hoping to have some questions afterwards.
Thank you. If you go to the next slide for me, thank you. So just an overview of the plan for our partnership throughout the end of the year. So we're working in a few phases, right? Right now we're in phase 1, the listening and learning, which we're really focusing on what are your stakeholders saying, right? And so we are planning up to 15 state listening sessions for your stakeholders. At this point, between May 17th and May 26th, which was yesterday, we've completed 7 of those. So we'll be reporting back on those initial findings there. But this first phase really focusing on what's going on, what work have you done, right? What are folks saying? And then we'll report back with a more official analysis of the themes and trends that came up from these conversations. But as we're also working on supporting SACOG staff with advising along the way. So if anything comes up where there's very specific questions around, how to make this process the most equitable, while we're also working on this, we're there to support that as well. Phase 2 is really focused on building the capacity around developing the racial equity action plan, right? And so for us, our goal is to really increase the capacity of the people who will be doing the work so that once we step away from the partnership, it's sustainable, it can keep moving. You all have the skills that you need to move the work forward, because it's not a sprint, right? It's a journey, and it's going to take a long time to do it. So how are we building up the skills and the capacity of your folks, right? Not only this committee, but also the staff and folks across other organizations to be able to sustain this work as you move forward. And so we'll be focusing on that beginning in June through about November as we work with you all to help build that plan. And then phase 3 is really focused on implementation advising. And so supporting rolling out and beginning to implement the priorities set out in the racial equity plan and providing support along the way, right? It's probably not going to be seamless. It's a lot of stuff to do and a lot of, kind of areas to focus on, and that's okay. So we'll be here to help support that. Next slide, please. All right, so a few things that we've heard so far. Throughout the 7 listening sessions, we've had some with staff, we've had some with community-based organizations, with your transit partners, with your city and county representatives. And so there's a good mix of folks that we've talked to so far, but there's a general appreciation of SACOG's work as an equity educator and convener throughout the region. People are looking to you all. People are looking to SACOG because one, they know that you're doing this work and have centered equity as a priority, but also the unique space that you hold to be able to connect so many people together, right? And bring them together to have this conversation. So that's been generally across the board, people have given that feedback. SACOG staff are its greatest resources. Also, it's been mentioned several times that folks at SACOG are really, really smart. And they know what they're doing. And so we look to them to help, support in areas where we don't have the capacity around data collection and analysis, as well as there's a trust in the fact that the staff know what they're doing. So that's really great to hear. Access to regional data is extremely useful. The data piece has been brought up a few times. It's a lot of work, and so folks are really happy that you all are providing that and doing the work to collect that information, understanding that there are some gaps in that data when it comes to demographics and around race and ethnicity. Within the agency, there are a lot of interest and commitment in incorporating equity into SACOG's work. So for the most part, folks are like, I'm here for it. I'm ready to do this work. I'm excited for us to be moving forward. The staff that I've spoke to are like, we're committed to this and we're happy that we're doing it. We just want to know what to do next. And then SACOG has the opportunity to help align partners throughout the region around this work, right? So like I said, looking to you as a leader and a convener and collaborator to help build the capacity of folks throughout the region to actually move this work forward in their own agencies. Next slide. So some of the challenges and areas of of improvement that have been mentioned are around improved communication, right? And so you have some folks who know a lot of things, and then you have other folks who know nothing. They're like, I don't know what's happening, right? And then you have the folks who are in the middle who look to the newsletter or kind of hear things word of mouth. But it's kind of half and half when it comes to folks who are either very aware of what's going on at SACOG and those who just, haven't heard much of anything. So there's room for improvement there. Increased visibility as a community advocate. So folks understand that you all are not a direct service provider, but they would love to see you engage with community-based organizations and community members more. And so that's both as an agency as well as individuals. James, they want to see you out there. They want to see that you are participating in some of the community conversations as well. So that's come up a few times. Understand that equity is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and understand that differences between urban and rural community needs exist, right? And so the Sacramento folks, a lot of Sacramento folks are like, we understand that we're big and a lot of times we're here, and we want to make sure that we're not taking over and pulling from the rural areas, right? We want to make sure that the rural areas are represented in this work. And so SACOG needs to understand that doing equity throughout the region is not going to be the same for every space that you're looking to support. And so really making sure that you identify that. And then focus on both internal, the organizational, and external community equity efforts. Folks feel as though, SACOG is doing a lot of externally focused equity work. They would love to see and make sure that the organizationally and within the staff and within the workplace, SACOG is also focusing on building and making sure it's an equitable workplace, right? Next slide, please. And then some of the suggestions that have come up, again, acknowledge the impact of historically inequitable transportation policies. People want to know that SACOG recognizes that historically, a lot of the policies that have been created specifically within transportation were really grounded in inequity, right? And have impacted folks differently depending on the identities that they hold. They want to see that SACOG not only acknowledges in a newsletter, but calls it out as a reality. So starting there, recognize that communities are the experts of their experiences, right? So look to the communities for that expertise, speaking with folks more to ask them what they know, what they need, how they can support, where to go, really centering those voices and in this work and not necessarily, coming from the top down. Standardized staff training and capacity building opportunities. So making sure the internal staff have the capacity to do this work and that everyone is aligned, as well as, the board in this working group. So that was also mentioned, is making sure that the board has the capacity to make sure this work moves forward appropriately. And then commit funding to ongoing racial equity work throughout the region. Money. Make sure the money is going and the resources are going to the places and to the priorities that you say you want to support. That's a huge piece of this work in building sustainability to make sure that racial equity reaches, and equity in general is reaching or having the impact that you want it to have. Next slide. And that's all I have. So I tried to, hopefully that was clear as possible, but we do want to create some space to answer any questions or hear any reflections that you might have over the initial findings.
Okay. I think it's back to me. Is that correct? All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So I want to thank Shanice from Detroit, Michigan, and I want to thank Casey and Patrick and all those that were involved in that. Shanice, you're going to like the fact that my nephew is from Detroit, Michigan, and he swears that somewhere along the line Detroit has won a Super Bowl, but we won't talk about that. I think he fell on his head too many times growing up, but that's okay. But he's from Detroit, so I'm gonna have to introduce you guys so that you know. we're being asked today as working group members to take all of these learnings and give some guidance to the staff on what we think is important to include in the racial equity action plan. And what are our thinkings? What are our thoughts? What's going to be impactful? What's going to make a difference? What's going to leave a lasting impression and a lasting thought? So we're really trying to understand, out of all these themes that Venture has presented, what have you read? What have you seen? What have you heard that you feel is impactful towards our racial equity action plan? So I just want to kind of start the process of listening to what great ideas you have here as we move forward. Casey, I see you raising your hand.
Yes, I'm sorry, Chair Jennings, if I may. We can do this two ways. We can first just take reflections on what Patrick and Shanice have just presented, because that's just from the external stakeholder listening sessions, and then go on to tee up the results out of our one-on-ones with the REI group members, or I can give you that highlight of the REI group learnings, and then we can take it all together, if that makes sense.
Okay. So
and that's at your, however you'd like to do it.
What's your recommendation as far as the most impactful and time saving? Because I'm sensitive about time and people's time today.
If I may do a brief tee up of the learnings from the one-on-ones, then we can take everything all together.
Okay, let's do that.
Because I will do that briefly here. You already have the learnings written in your packet. So really what I just want to do is to let you know that we had 9 one-on-one interviews with members of this working group. So everyone was invited. It was primarily from our public members. We had some from board members. And the document that you have, what we did is in trying to summarize all that information, your staff did that work. We were trying to capture all of the different ideas that came out, organized according to the 5 actions that are part of your equity statement. Now, it's a lot of information, but I think what we would summarize as the main ideas from the question and the discussion were listed in your agenda, which is around equitable and community engagement. Like, what does that really look like? And then what SACOG can do to support cities, counties, and transit agencies in relearning how to engage with their communities. And then how can SACOG create opportunities for local elected officials to understand the different communities in the region? So that's really the theme of everything there. So I'm going to throw that onto the pile with what Shanice just presented. And now we are ready to listen and answer any questions you have.
Okay. And I think the key questions, what are the ideas that jump out that need to be turned into actionable steps? Tell me if I'm going in the right direction here. Which ones of these will have the biggest impacts? And which one should we prioritize first? Not necessarily in that order, but you can just throw out, like, answer just one of those 3, but we want to get your inputs right now on everything that you've heard so far. And I see Lucas with his hand up. Lucas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. I just wanted to, I have a question before we get into the sort of our reflections on it. I do have a question for Shanice and Patrick. Thank you very much for all of your work so far and sort of providing this update to us. I was just curious in terms of these stakeholder conversations. I see it, of course, like in page 20 of the packet, sort of entails REI working group members. Casey just gave us an update on that. City and county staff, transit agency, those have been mentioned and such. There's also been, so if I heard it correctly, I think I heard 7 out of 15 sort of, or there was some number that was some number out of some number sort of stakeholders conversations have occurred. So I'm curious sort of if it's possible to share who some of those groups have been. That would be really helpful. And then also who might still be left to sort of engage with. A couple of the other categories that are listed there include tribal governments as an example. So I'm really curious about that. I'd like to, and I know one thing that we had talked about both in this body, but also at the board level, the larger SACOG board level, was and you touched on it in the presentation around rural, but there is a real need for a wide range of geographies in the region to be represented. And so I'm really curious about a little bit more specifics as to who some of these stakeholder conversations have been and or who are still yet to occur and be planned. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so far, we've spoken with SACOG's managers in a separate session, city and county staff. So a few folks, that one was actually pretty small. I believe there were 3 folks that attended that one. And so we've actually decided to add another session to invite additional city and county representatives to sign up to participate in that. We've done 3, let's see. We've done 2 transit staff sessions, or transit agency staff sessions, 2 non-manager staff sessions, and let's see, the community-based organization session. So we still have several more. Or are you referring more to like specifically who was in that? Okay.
Yeah, I would love to know. So instead of just the sort of category of transit agency staff, which agencies, which city and county staffs? I mean, I do think tribal governments needs to be covered, definitely. So. Yeah,
no, and we're tracking all of that. I don't have that in this moment, but we absolutely can share that information with you. The tribal government strategy was a specific strategy that we've been working with the team on. And so I don't know, Patrick, if you want to, you've been leading that a bit, and Casey, I don't know, or Eric, if you want to say a little bit about the tribal governments.
Yeah, we knew that there was a special approach to connecting with the tribal agencies, that there had been kind of inconsistent and not complete, like thorough communication. And so we, began with emails and phone calls. And so the challenge is that the, responses are not forthwith. We had an initial response from 3 tribes that I don't have right in front of me, but and then follow-up also has fallen off. So it's been really complicated to connect and get the input. We're not done yet, but we are trying to employ different strategies beyond just the phone calls and emails. We're trying to network. We're looking for support of other organizations, other people that have relationships. So yeah, happy to hear thoughts or ideas. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you both. I really appreciate it. I would, I just loved it. That's why I appreciate that detail, because I think there is, even just amongst a number of us here, and there's others too who are not in this meeting or who may not have been able to attend today, that definitely are able to be of assistance in that regard. So, I mean, we would, and I think it really is important to have some of these conversations occur. So yeah, definitely love to make sure that there's again, as wide of a representation of these different categories across the sort of the stakeholder conversations as possible. So if there is a need for some assistance in a couple of these categories, like I hope that you all and or SACOG staff will be reaching out to us to let us know how we can be of assistance. Thank you so much.
Director Ferriss, if I may, consider that an ask. We would very much welcome, and we can follow up afterwards, but we would love any help with facilitating a contact with tribal representatives. And I do believe I think you have done that for one of them already. And so we are looking out for help with the other 4.
Yeah, I'm happy to help if El Dorado or Red Hawk, Jingle Springs, we can be helpful there too. So happy to help. I'm sure Wendy, all right.
So Robert, I'm gonna need some help with the hands because I can't see everybody's hands
No
from my
worries.
screen.
Let me take a look. See, I'm not seeing any raised hands right now in the panelists or the attendees list. So no hands raised currently.
Mm-hmm. So I'll go back to the questions. What ideas jumped out at you that need to be turned into actionable steps? Which actionable steps do we think will have the greatest impact? Which one should be prioritized first? So I just want to kind of throw that out there to each of you to get your thoughts on what was presented to you today and moving forward.
Looks like Debbie Otto Kent's got her hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind of the framing and the sharing of the approach that you've taken, and particularly the fact that, you know, this is going to be a kind of a multi-dimensional approach. The action plan is, and to really, you know, integrate racial equity and the elements of the racial equity statement into a number of different levels in the way SACOG operates internally and externally. And so the data, or the kind of the attachments here on the learnings, the listing of learnings, you know, I like the way that you've broken down the feedback into programs, operations, and board practices. And it seems like a lot of the data has shaken out in that way, or the feedback thus far you've gotten have shaken out into those categories. But as you know, kind of as I look at just the responses, there also seems to be a fair amount of overlap, like concepts around training internally for staff, training opportunities externally for partner agencies and entities, training for board. Seems like that seems to be a common thread. Other in the program section, when you kind of categorize the feedback into the various the 5 areas that were called out in the racial equity statement around listen and learn, plan, support, act, and measure, those 5 key areas. As I look at a lot of them under the program area, it seems like a number of the comments really embody to me kind of core principles of community engagement, and how can, you know, perhaps part of the action plan should really articulate from what we've gathered and a lot of documents out there and publications around inclusive community engagement, how to do, measure, execute, measure community engagement, that maybe one of the actions could be an adoption of some kind of core principles or understanding about what is authentic, robust community engagement that would be put forth in program areas, and also serve as a basis for training.
Thank you, Debbie. So again, I'm looking for what ideas that jumped out at you, which ones will have the biggest impact, and how do we prioritize these? So I'm really looking for your best thoughts based on the work that's been presented to us so far.
Yeah, I thought, just jumping off of what Debbie said, I think I forwarded, I can't remember if I did or not, but I think I forwarded to Rosie kind of like this chart that was developed. It was like the spectrum of community engagement. Rosa Gonzalez, I think, was the one that kind of helped create that. I can make sure that I forward it to maybe Eric. Again, I don't remember.
You did send that.
Oh, I did. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
The other thing I just wanted to say was because there's no chat function, I wanted to say hi to Patrick. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
So in addition to the 3 questions that I asked, I mean, this would also be a time to gain clarification and to express any concerns about anything that's been presented today, or just better clarity. So that's why we have our consultants here and staff here, in order to be able to, you know, help us to gain better understanding to what was maybe presented that is not clear.
Well, I have another one, if
okay.
if I may. The other kind of theme that jumped out at me a little bit as I read through the responses was this whole notion about how do we integrate sort of accountability, if you will, in all these areas, programs, operations, and board. And so, you know, things that jumped out to me is about having regular reports at board meetings and internally at staff meetings around progress towards achievement of specific activities and goals outlined in the action plan, you know, having a kind of embedding accountability of action plan items being integrated into the various different planning activities and programs, initiatives that were outlined in that colorful line chart, which was really helpful to me to help really make clear that this racial equity, the intention of the racial equity action plan is intended to have relevance and be implemented throughout all of those initiatives of SACOG. And there were a number of comments, I think, that spoke to the importance of keeping the goals and the outcomes of the racial equity plan front and central, both internally and operationally, at board meetings and through programmatic efforts.
Thank you, Debbie. Did anybody want to respond to that, or?
No, I would just like to say I totally agree with Debbie and believe that, you know, just going back to those major goals and making sure that it flushes out into all of the policies and all of that. I am curious, since it sounds like we still have to get some more data from stakeholders and such, that that obviously will happen before our next board meeting. And so as we're fleshing all these things out today, I'm assuming that, you know, we'll be able to include that data for the next time and maybe have more information to work with.
That could lead to a heartier discussion on all of this. I agree with that.
And Chair Jennings, Director Guerrero has her hand up.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I forgot you couldn't see Chair Jennings. Thank you, Director Ferriss. I just wanted to add, and this, like, looking at the two pieces, the presentation that we received and the notes we are taking a look at here. And I was going to try to figure out here between the two, like how to blend it, how to blend my comments. And it's really hard for me to combine the two. I'm looking at the notes and it's really valuable information. And I'm trying to figure out what themes we can bring to, you know, synthesize all of them. So it's not like, it's not really dense information. Like you really have to go through all that level. People don't read that much. And even when we're preparing, if I'm going back, you know, bringing any of this back to council to create a policy, I need it in a way that is easy to translate, easy to make a connection with our constituents, to let them know that we are listening to them. I see that what is written in here in the notes is identifying some of the gaps in reaching out to constituencies that you know, have often felt ignored, or like council meetings are not speaking their language already, you know, even figuratively, just literally as well. People don't understand what's happening, and the level of trust that they have, you know, that people have with the, you know, underserved and unrepresented members of our community for many years. And they don't trust us, but I see some solutions in the notes. And so those are some of the things that I just like to kind of say, you know, bridging the two from the presentation, which I appreciate, you know, Patrick and Shanice, that you're taking a look at outlining how we're going to move from this to a way to implement this, and that's just an idea. I also would like to see what policies we could at the local, you know, each jurisdiction, and what partnerships we need to have, like, so let's say with the city of West Sacramento, when we're looking at community-based organizations, I'm thinking of organizations like the Teens Collins Center, for example. If there's a way to bridge the two, so it kind of makes it, I don't want to say easier, but it really is easier for staff to make those connections, or the Yolo County Children's Alliance, organizations that have that, partnerships. Debbie Odo Kent's shop has that partnership as well in our community. So those community-based organizations that do have those connections that we on City of West Sacramento don't have, so that we can start moving forward in a smooth I don't want to wait like 3 years before we see anything happen. In other words, I want to be able to make these things happen in the next, maybe 18 months. So I really appreciate all the work. I know this is not easy to put together and present to us and then expect us to come right back and, express what we are interested in seeing next. But those are my ideas, and I hope it helps.
Thank you, Martha. Others? Shanice, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for that. Exactly. What I wanted to lift up is one of the questions that we asked during the listening sessions if folks have examples of other stakeholders or regional partners who are doing equity work, and then I have them describe them or provide those examples. So we'll put together those findings, and I want to put together one big list of every organization that was kind of talked about, as well as resources that folks are sharing, specifically around community-based organizations who are doing this work, so that the goal is not to start, or recreate the wheel. It's not to start from ground zero. There are folks who are doing this work and who have been doing it. And, it's really ideal for SACOG to tap into those conversations as opposed to trying to start from ground zero. So that's definitely a part of the information collecting that we're doing.
So Shanice or Patrick, either one can answer this question. And then you may have already answered it. I just maybe I didn't hear it. Will the listening sessions and the one-on-ones be completed prior to our next July meeting?
Yes, the listening sessions will be completed by the week of June 20th is our plan. So that, we should have the listening sessions done, as well as the goal is to have a report, a memo that comes out to you with some more detailed findings by the next meeting.
And the listening sessions and the one-on-ones are different, correct?
Yes, so Venture has led the listening sessions, which are small groups. And so usually around, I would say, our goal is to have at least 7 folks, but they've been between 3 and 9 participants. And then Casey and Eric, I believe, led the one-on-ones. So yeah, 2 separate approaches.
Okay, so Casey I'll ask Casey the question on, will they be completed before our next meeting as well?
The one-on-ones are, they are complete unless anyone on this working group wants to take, they were optional for everyone on this working group. So we've put out the invitation. I will do that to you as well again. Anyone who has not done it, we would love to take the time with you. And if we do that, we would like to have it finished by the same time frame that Patrick and Shanice are finishing, so that we have information all at the same time.
Okay. Well, send it back to me, because I don't know why I said no, but I'm willing to say yes now.
Fantastic. Yes.
Because I think it's important to be involved in this and to participate. So, so both of those will be completed by June 20th, and our next opportunity to come together is July 29th, I believe, is that date and time. Yeah, July 29th, 22nd. So then that information from the listening sessions and the one-on-ones will be summarized and sent out to all of us, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And we hope to be able to translate that into like the first version, like a first draft of an action plan, so that you can see those listenings as well as the action plan, so you can start working with all of that.
That would be great. Okay. Other questions, other thoughts, other clarity, other discussion items, direction on what, are we moving in the right direction? Are there things we need to do differently?
I think Director Gog just had his hand up.
Director Gog.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair Rick. I just want to say that I guess I'm one of the directors that didn't get the opportunity to connect, and I'll do the best I can to get moving forward on this information. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to trying to teach or trying to share this race equity and inclusion in a small town with all the people that I have met and trying to explain to them what the group is trying to accomplish and stuff. And it seemed like it just, it's either above their head or below their feet. It just not it's not connecting. So I've been having really difficult time coming up with ideas and everything. I mean, I know what I want to do, but I still, it'd be nice to get some input from other people as to how they feel. I mean, everything that we've gone through all our life, it's kind of, we're looking at it as a movie in a sense and trying to make some sense of it, that we had all these things happening to us all these years, but we never stood up, or even if we did stood up, we were never accounted for anything. I think maybe the people in bigger cities are more broad-minded and they can understand this, but in a small city, I'm clueless to what's going on. I mean, I have my feeling, I'm willing to share those, but just trying to get input from other citizens or even other high-level member of the community, I've really had a difficult time making any sense out of it. So I don't know if that tells you anything that I'm going through, but you know, it's all real, and we do need to focus on it, and we need to fill the needs of our constituents and move forward with this, because we're really way behind on this thing, and we need to keep making progress and try to make the difference for everyone out there, and betterment of all community, all mankind, in a sense. Thank you.
Wholeheartedly agree, Director God. Wholeheartedly agree. Other comments from the members?
Chair Jennings, can I just try to do one more prompt here just before we move on? And it's an interesting conversation. I definitely hear. I think, you know, Director Guerrero, you kind of walking through, there's a lot of raw data here, right? You're sort of, I think what I hear you saying is like, help me process a little bit here. Like, how do I translate that? That's very fair. But at least here's a couple of things that I would ask just as we close this, if you have any further thoughts, and if you don't, it's fine. So one is, right, think about the SACOG board next year. Every even year, everybody knows we have elections, people retire, right? There'll be new board members. What would you think now, and maybe for SACOG board members, or maybe for all of you, because you get to know our board, what kinds of things next year would you want to do to be continuing the journey on, right, and strengthening the muscle around racial equity for the full board, for the full 31 member board, right? We've heard ideas, I've heard ideas when I talk to people about this. Hey, we really need to understand, I always appreciate Dr. Clark Kratz talking about the anniversary of the internment and the things we're doing in Loomis, but we need to better understand our history. We are not taught our history here in this region. It's important we understand it. The awful pieces and the really inspiring pieces, all right, that all have to do with racial exclusion, inclusion. So is that we have field trips, right? We've got sort of internal, I see some internal field trips for, you know, board members, understand our reach, understand different communities, right? Urban, suburban, rural. Those are themes that kind of pop up. So that's one, you know, just before we close here, one piece of that. And the other is, you know, we can do all this work as SACOG, and we're committed to working on the internal side and our staffing and our hiring and procurement and programs and everything else. But how do we engage with all of your 28 jurisdictions and our on our partners, right? Our partner agencies are, many of which are doing good work on this, to be very clear. So those are two categories I would say that are on my mind. One is board culture, board education, right? Board building a muscle. And the other is all of our partner agencies, your local jurisdictions, transit agencies, JPAs. How do we engage, right? Build a, you know, whatever, the coalition of the willing, however you want to describe it. So just two prompts before we leave this item.
Yeah, thanks, James. This is Michael in Placerville, and this kind of goes back to what Director Gog said too. And that's, you know, I wouldn't mind. I mean, and I don't know if there's something out there, but any other best practices or just other efforts maybe that have been done on the REI front in rural areas. It's just a much different conversation for us. You know, in a rural area, it's you know, it's, you know, when you have, like in my, for instance, Placerville is about 80% Caucasian. So it's just a different conversation when you're in a smaller town, and how we can kind of bridge that divide. And it's not even necessarily a divide that's, I'm trying to think of the best way of putting this. That's like people just don't get it. And so that, you know, that they don't think about it. And so it's something that would be great to see, because I know a lot of what we've seen over time is, you know, it's really urban focused in a lot of cases, and that's because that's where we see more of the diversity, right? So, I'd love to be able to see something like that as well. I think it would be helpful in conversations, and certainly would be something just from a personal perspective would love to see too. And I love the idea of like sort of the internal, you know, road trips and different things for people experiencing different parts of our region. I think is great as well for all of us, just as board members, and for our external board members as well. So thank you.
Chair Jennings, I believe Director Gallardo has her hand up.
Chair Jennings, you are currently on mute.
Got me talking. I said a whole speech in that 5 minutes that I was on mute. Jill, go ahead, please.
Good. Thank you. I just wanted to second that. I think you mentioned a field trip, and earlier where Director Clark Kratz talked about the internment. What a great place to start. And you think about it, and we were talking about different demographics. Certainly Loomis doesn't come to your mind as a multicultural location necessarily, but the history is there. And wouldn't that be a fun place to start? And talking about the Japanese internment is such an incredible story that I think that would be just an awesome, I mean, go out to the Blue Goose, to the fruit sheds there, and maybe have that same mini presentation by that same group. I think that would be a really neat place to start.
Great idea. I like that a lot. I like that. I see two hands up. I can't quite tell who they are. So
Darren, Director Soon, and Shanice Alexander.
Okay. Director Soon, we'll take you first.
Okay, thanks, Chair Jennings. And apologies, I wasn't able to get here until now due to work obligations. I inferred from the comments about Director Clark Kratz's talk about the internment camp, and I was reminded of a recent conversation that I had with Congressman LaMalfa's field director, and she was telling me how the 442, the Japanese troop during World War II, was well known in Placer County, although I had never heard of it until I saw it in a movie. And I'm getting to my point here. And as far as advancing education on the board, I'd ask James that maybe if there's a movie out there called The Race Epidemic that's been produced by and promoted to educate on the AAPI community. And I was wondering, that might be a worthwhile showing. That's where I learned about the 442 myself. I mean, I personally, for all of you, I'm of Chinese descent, not Japanese descent, but nonetheless, I've never heard of this 442, even though I've born and raised in Sacramento. So that to me would be a suggestion, at least as far as the AAPI community, to educate our board members. So anyways, if folks are open to it, I'd be happy to work with James offline about bringing that to our board. Thank you.
Director Soon, I'm just jumping in and tell you that story about the 442nd is just incredible. And there's just a couple left now. But yeah, it's a shame that people aren't aware of what an incredible group that is.
I would definitely favor of seeing that. And I'd like to add another one on to it called Far East, Deep South.
Yes, yes.
And it took a documentary for me to know that that Asians had migrated to Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I never quite understood the history of it until I saw the documentary, and it opened up my eyes tremendously to a lot of things. And so I think that would be another one to add on to that.
Yeah.
So,
I know Baldwin Chu very well. Yeah, we can.
And James, I can get to Guild Theater anytime you want it, and we can fill it up with 300 people, and we can have a wonderful session inviting leaders and community people in. So, if that's something we think we should do, we can make that happen. Shanice, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I want to lift up this process as one to practice, and this is for everyone and all of us who are doing this type of work in general, to practice remembering that it is a process, and it's not a checkbox, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? And so I know, especially government-wise, we want the answers, and we want the answers now, right? And yes, because the inequities they need to be solved, right? They need to be fixed. And a big part of doing this work really intentionally and doing it really well is understanding that sometimes process can impede progress. And we want to be really aware of not being so kind of stuck in the processes that we are just like used to moving forward with, to the point that we actually aren't doing what we say we want to do, right? So just my role, and I do this with all of anyone who I'm working with, is the constant reminders that it's so important to just keep in mind it's a process and it's going to take time, especially around community building, which is relationship building. That is going to take time, especially, and I want to go back to kind of the relationship with the tribal governments. Historically, we have to remember, right, where our tribal and indigenous communities, what they've gone through. We're not going to fix that in the next year. Now we can work toward that. We can make some strides, but I just want to, for all of you here, as you're thinking about how to move forward, as you're thinking about starting to build this racial equity action plan, yes, there's the development of the plan, but that plan needs to be implemented. And that is another process. And it might not go as you think it's going to go, from the beginning. And so just a bit of like, let's practice a bit of like, it's a process, and just reminding ourselves of that, because we want to do it thoughtfully and with intention, and not just because it feels right to do. So I just wanted to lift that up as this is a part of the capacity building, is centering the fact that we're in this, there's a lot to learn. There's some level setting that needs to happen with this group, as well as anyone else who's doing this work, to understand the history, both of the large cities and the rural areas. And that is a practice of building empathy as well, which is a huge piece of doing racial equity work. The last thing I'll say, and I'll stop, the language piece, we need to define what we're even talking about. How are we defining racial equity, social equity? Me, I'm not as caught up on the words. Social equity encompasses all of the things, right? And it includes race. Now, we use racial equity. In my head, I'm seeing that as social equity. So the places where there's not as much racial diversity, and using an equity approach, it still applies, right? because you're identifying the specific needs of the most underserved, regardless of everything else. And so kind of leaving some wiggle room around, yes, this is a racial equity action plan, but that also includes multiple identities, all of the identities that we all hold as we're thinking about addressing inequities throughout the different parts of the region. So I'll step back, but thank you. I just wanted to lift that up for you all.
Thank you so much for doing that. Jan Clark Kratz.
Yeah, just a couple of things I wanted to let the group know. I grew up in Loomis. I'm 58. And when I grew up, a lot of our leaders were Japanese Americans. And I just thought all small towns were like that. And that is how my world was. And what happened as the populations changed, the population changed. And here we are in today's world. And people are moving into my town in my Placer County in the Sacramento region, and they have absolutely no idea about what happened in our history. And so, the Japanese internment, a lot of people had no idea. They had no idea that Loomis was actually an extremely racially diverse town over the years. It's not just Loomis, obviously, it's a whole area. And what I have found is that people that are moving in are just so amazed about that. It gets their interest, and it makes them, really want to know what about our history and why it's so important to the town. And so I just really feel like it's just a nexus, and I feel I would be happy to share with you too on the everything of the events that we did over the last month. We have lists of books and we have, like I said, we've recorded what we did. And then talking about the 442, I believe that was the most award-winning military group that has ever been in the United States. So it's just multifaceted, but my point is, understanding our history and then understanding the horrible things that happened, I think is hugely important. And that's just my 2 cents. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I think we're going to come back at this. We got scheduled some dates and times and everything, and we know the listening sessions and the individual sessions will be happening as well and completed by the 20th. And then we've got 242, and I don't know what everybody's timeline is, but we have one more item. And so AJ, I'm going to ask you if we have enough time for that item. Time, energy, all the above for that item, or do we want to take a look at putting this forward to another date?
I have all the time and the energy. It's you all that have been actually active in the meeting doing the hard work so far. So I would probably ask maybe Casey or James what they thought on this.
Yeah, James, this is Michael. I don't want to short shift any presentation. So I'll, if there's enough time, great, I can stay on. But if it's a larger conversation, I would just assume see it on our next meeting so we can give it ample time as well. So.
Chair Jennings, this is Martha. I have a 3 p.m. so I won't be able to stay longer.
Okay.
We certainly don't ever expect any to stay after 3. I want to be clear about that. It's a lot of time on a Friday. Casey, what do you think in terms of timing?
Well, we're doing this a little bit real time, but my question for AJ is, if we do this at the end of July, does that give us enough, time to be able to work with the feedback that we get? Because I know that we are headed into community engagement in late summer, early fall, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that it does. In a lot of ways, we've got sort of the framework that was shared in the memo developed. It's more a matter of fine tuning of, who are we missing? And maybe actually by that point, we might have a better sense of that community-based organization RFQ have gone out and who we're missing and who we still want to continue to talk to, that this group might have really great insight there. So I think that'd work great.
Okay, then let's do that.
So just to be clear, that means we move this to the meeting
To
of
our
the
July
29th?
meeting. Yes.
Okay. Do we need to vote on this, or is that head nodding good enough? Because I'm watching all of you guys and you guys are all like dancing to the right song. Like, okay, I got a 3-day weekend. I know it's your anniversary. I want you to get off this phone. You're driving me crazy. I want to go do the next item today. I want to get ready for this 3-day weekend. Actually, 4 days if you count today. Okay, so all right. So we'll move it to the 29th and no vote is needed. That was a thoughtful discussion. That was powerful. And I'm really proud that we had that discussion. And it's just a starting point. And Shanice, I really appreciated your comments on, slow down, take your time. The race is not given to the swift nor the strong, but he who endureth to the end. That kind of philosophy. So I'm with you, So with that, I'll open it up for any other questions or thoughts or anything for anyone before we adjourn the meeting. Anybody with any questions, thoughts, anything you want to announce? Anything happening this weekend that you want to make sure people come to? I got a farmer's market at the Elks Lodge in Greenhaven Pocket. So if you're looking for fresh fruits and vegetables, this is the place to come, right? Every single Saturday, Elks Lodge number 6, right on Riverside Boulevard. So come on into Sacramento. And I know you got your own places to go to as well, but just want to let you know that that's there. Okay.
Well, I just want to thank the staff and my colleagues on this committee. I'm excited about the work that has been accomplished and the work ahead of us. And I appreciate everyone taking such a thoughtful approach to it. So thank you.
Well said. Very well said. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, Michael here again. May was such a crazy month for me. I don't remember if I talked to anyone on a one-on-one or if I didn't. I ignored an email. I apologize if I did, but if I haven't done this, I don't think I did, please call me or I'll make sure that I get that in. So I just wanted to, before we hang up here.
Okay.
We will follow up with everyone who has not yet had one to just make sure, just give you another chance if you want to do that. So we'll do that individually. Thank you.
That'd be great. That'd be great. And I just want to.
I'm just jumping in. I know lots of cities and jurisdictions are doing their own, but we will be, Rockland Cemetery will be doing a Memorial Day celebration on Monday at 11 o'clock. And we of course welcome anyone that would like to join us.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other announcements or comments? As your chair of this group, I do want to apologize to you that you did not get the best of Rick Jennings today. My mind is on an anniversary, 44 years. My mind is on a father who's 96 years old, who is transitioning. And my mind is on a 3-day weekend that I couldn't wait for it to happen. And so, you just didn't get the best of Rick today. And I'm always the first to know when I haven't given you my best. But I promise you, it won't happen twice in a row. I will be better, I will get better, and I will do better because I can do better. So thank you for enduring me today with all the things that are going on. And thank you for coming into this meeting on a Friday for 2 hours. And I appreciate each and every one of you for all that you bring to SACOG and to your respective jurisdictions. So with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and have a wonderful, incredible, great weekend.
Happy anniversary, Rick.
Thank
Happy
you.
anniversary.